Hey guys, TrueGreen7 here, and I honestly believe that out of all the Pokemon ever created, Pikachu is the most appropriate mascot for the franchise. It's cute, but fierce. Gender neutral in both design and color, allowing it to be marketed to boys and girls, he's a relatively ambiguous animal at first glance, making it a recognizable species instead of a plain old yellow mouse. Its powers are very flashy, but it can also be physical. In the games, it's rare but still obtainable. It's both a quadruped and biped because it can be found standing on its hind legs pretty often, so its personality can shine. It's not big, but Pikachu isn't tiny either, and his popularity due to the anime and games before it was rising well before it became Pokemon's mascot. All of these features make Pikachu such a lovable Pokemon, and I believe that there are close to no Pokemon that can emulate Pikachu's marketability and charm. But let's say there was a hypothetical situation in which Pikachu was needed to be replaced as a mascot, and we had all 800 plus Pokemon to choose from as the new representative of the Pokemon games, anime, TCG, and all other aspects of Pokemon. Well, that's what we're going to discuss in this video. I'm gonna go in Pokedex order and talk about why some Pokemon could be mascots, and also why these promising Pocket Monsters couldn't work, because let's face it, Pikachu is just so darn perfect. Not as a Pokemon, but as an icon, and by the end of the video, you'll understand why some of your picks wouldn't work too. When trying to come up with an alternative mascot, you naturally first turn to the next most popular Pokemon among Pokemon fans across the world, and not just Japan or the US. That Pokemon is Charizard. But we're not focusing on him, cause even though it's the mascot of Pokemon Red, it's too ferocious looking, even when calm. It also could be mistaken for a generic dragon by any non-Pokemon fan, while Pikachu wouldn't be mistaken for an ordinary mouse, cause if you do mistake it for an average mouse, I don't even want to know what kind of mice have been scurrying around your house. How about we look at the Pokemon that was originally going to be the mascot of Pokemon? Clefairy. It's even Red's partner Pokemon in the first official Pokemon manga ever released. It has a few criteria that it can fulfill. It's not a specific animal, so it stands out. It has very ambiguous fairy powers, which allows for a great variety of attacks to be shown off in the anime, as well as a face that allows it to show a wide range of emotions, unlike a Pokemon like Poliwhirl. Although not important, it's a funny coincidence that it has colored cheeks, dark coloring at the end of its ears, as well as a stylized tail, just like Pikachu. But most importantly, it evolves via Evolutionary Stone, rather than leveling up. So if it was Ash's partner Pokemon, it could get as strong as possible without evolving and ruining its design and personality, which is another reason why Pikachu is such a good mascot as well. The problem is Clefairy is very pink. Nothing wrong with that, but Pokemon is primarily marketed to children, who tend to buy toys, games, and merchandise that are marketed to their gender. Clefairy is relatively girly, while Pikachu is yellow, a color that isn't associated with any gender and is subconsciously happy, bright, and noticeable. Jigglypuff, while more popular than Clefairy and much more iconic, is also too feminine and in this case, too cute, and not tough looking enough. It's not a generic animal and it could show a very wide range of emotions, much more so than Clefairy, but once again, you'll notice how a gender-neutral design is the most important feature that we're looking for in a franchise that is aimed at both boys and girls, more so than any video game franchise I can think of. That means this topic will come up throughout the video, so if the term gender-neutral triggers you somehow, this isn't gonna be your favorite video. Meowth could be the next choice. It's iconic. A talking Meowth could be a very good commentator and host of various Pokemon events. However, it's already associated with the bad guys, could be mistaken for a normal cat when its coin is obscured, and to some extent, wouldn't be fully understood considering its origin is completely Japanese, being based on the Maneki Neko. Although another heavily Japanese-influenced cat, Jibanyan, is doing well as a mascot of its video game franchise. That's pretty much it for all other Kanto Pokemon, because most are either too cute like Eevee and Mew, too intimidating like Mewtwo or Blastoise, or just don't have close to as many ideal attributes as Pikachu does. Keep in mind that the mascot can't look too much like an existing animal, and ideally should be able to stand up, while there will be a few exceptions for that later on. We're not going to seriously look at Pichu, since it's just a smaller and cuter Pikachu. Meryl, though, is pretty much a blue Pikachu, a Pika-Blue if you will. But it is more exciting to say use Thunderbolt than use Water Gun. Although it has a gender polarizing color, blue, which is mostly marketed to boys, its cuteness cancels that out. It also has a nice stylized tail, and is a very ambiguous mouse-like creature, but it's too round, which prevents it from performing the wide range of motions that Pikachu has done over the years. You just can't realistically do that much with a body like that. An odd choice would be Sneasel. It's relatively pretty while still looking fierce, maybe even too fierce, and it doesn't evolve by leveling up alone. It's very cool, literally, and fast like Pikachu. It would appeal to both genders in terms of color and design, and it's even a very ambiguous looking Weasel. Although its Japanese origin will fly over the heads of Western fans, but I do think it's too dark, literally, to be a mascot. It doesn't pop out at all. The rest of Johto isn't filled with mascot material either. Celebi is fine, but it's a legendary, and thus not accessible in the games and too overpowered in the anime. So let's look at the 4 Hoenn candidates. Trico is unexpected, and I didn't choose it just because of how much I love it. It genuinely has a lot of what Pikachu offers. Its design and colors are gender neutral, and it does look like some kind of lizard, but if you were to ask a bunch of kids, would they really understand that Trico is a gecko? It stands on its legs, but it can also be very quick on all 4s. Not to mention speedy in general, as well as both physical and special in terms of visual attacks. It's cute and fierce, has a very standout personality, especially Ash's Trico, and can believably express all sorts of emotions, as well as be placed in all kinds of situations. But it's unfortunately not as popular as Torchic and Mudkip, and those two certainly wouldn't be good mascots for a lot of the reasons I already addressed. Makuhita is one of the weaker examples I can find, as its design isn't the most appealing and it isn't that expressive, but I find it interesting that it has Pikachu's color scheme, so if the design was as appealing as Pikachu's, then it could work. The next one is also only suitable if we change the circumstances a bit. Absol is a Pokemon that is a mix of a bunch of extremes, just like how Pikachu is cute yet intimidating. Absol is beautiful, but also aggressive looking. It's both feminine and masculine, and has a very expressive, almost human-like face. And on top of that, it's relatively intelligent, doesn't evolve, and has a lot of backstory that could be touched upon in the anime. But it's a quadruped and too big, so it can't really do a lot of human things. I believe if Pokemon was aimed at teenagers instead of children, this Pokemon would definitely be well received as a pivotal Pokemon in the games and anime. And if Jirachi wasn't a mythical Pokemon, it could totally be up for consideration. But that's it for Hoenn. From Sinnoh, we have Chimchar, who is both cute and fierce and moves like Pikachu and goes back and forth between standing on its legs or running on all 4s. But it's definitely too monkey-like, and while it's cute, it's not as cute as Pikachu. However, its story in the anime does prove that it could be a compelling Pokemon. A more suitable replacement for Pikachu would be Shinx, and basically the only quadruped that is up for really serious consideration. It's incredibly cute and relatively gender neutral. It's an ambiguous lynx, so people wouldn't associate it with anything other than Pokemon, and it's even an electric type with a stylized tail. If this Pokemon didn't evolve by leveling up and somehow stood, which wouldn't be a good idea, then I believe this Pokemon would be the #1 candidate. It's like a cat with the personality of a dog. That's pretty appealing. Pachirisu is the only Pikachu clone on this list because it looks the least like Pikachu among its clone brethren. It pretty much has everything that Pikachu has, but doesn't pop out as much, with an almost purely white color scheme. It's also too small and frankly too squirrely, but we do know that it could be pretty useful in battle. The Pokemon right next to it in the Pokedex is Weasel, a prime candidate. It even looks like an anime protagonist. It's a very uniquely designed Weasel, both cute and cool, intensely gender neutral in color scheme, incredibly expressive, moves like Pikachu, and has tons of personality. It could honestly be the perfect choice if it didn't have a tube on its neck. It's a great design, but I'm sure a good amount of you guys thought it looked weird in the past. But I'm looking at this Pokemon right now, and damn does it look like it could be the main character of some kind of video game or anime franchise. Riolu is a very good example of something that looks both cute and tough. It can emote well, and is the most ambiguous jackal I've ever seen. It looks ambitious, like it could star in its own video game or anime, but unfortunately it evolves through friendship, and if it became a main character, the fact that it wouldn't evolve kinda means that it's not happy, which is a bad thing. And on top of that, it doesn't really have any flashy powers, being a fighting type and all, but it was definitely a missed opportunity that Ash never really had one in the anime. Rotom would be a good mascot. It could easily communicate using appliances, is fun, and has tons of facial expressions. The presentation possibilities are endless, but it's got no limbs. The whole point of a mascot is that it's the most recognizable part of the franchise to people that aren't fans, yet. And this Pokemon doesn't look like most Pokemon. Sinnoh gave us some pretty mascotable Pokemon, but Univa's Victini is also a top choice, although we really are ruling out mythical Pokemon. Axew is up for consideration too, but its tusks make it hard to see the full range of its emotions, and it's not the most popular Pokemon out there. So we're moving on to Kalos, and I think the 3 starters as a group could be very good mascots, considering there isn't a Kalos starter that is unanimously more popular than the other, and I'm not talking about their fully evolved forms. And with the limited amount of Kalos Pokemon, we're finishing off with some Alolan Pokemon. Rowlet is by far the most popular of the 3 starters. It can do a lot of fun things, so it's an entertaining Pokemon, but the fact that it's a rather realistic looking bird is kinda limiting. It doesn't really represent Pokemon as a whole, considering it's just an owl with a grass bow tie, and how many Pokemon like that do we have? Rockruff, though, is a good example of a popular Pokemon that stands out. It's cute and cuddly, but also rugged and spirited, but it looks more like a pet than a partner. Although once you get to know one, it'll be by your side forever. But the point of a mascot, once again, is that it represents Pokemon as a whole, without needing too much information to appreciate it, and you wouldn't know that it was no ordinary dog until interacting with one. Now you see how hard it is to find a Pokemon that could both fulfill all the needs of a Pokemon mascot while also being extremely appealing as a Pokemon itself. Of course, every franchise or company has different necessities when it comes to their mascot. All the factors that we talked about when looking at these Pokemon wouldn't apply to Nintendo's mascot, Mario, because they need a mascot that represents dynamic and ageless fun, which Mario does perfectly, and Pikachu flawlessly represents this franchise as well. So I hope this video gave you more appreciation for the Pokemon that helped contribute to this franchise's worldwide success. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter to hear more about my opinion and keep up to date, and check out the description for some nice t-shirts and a link to become a Patreon patron. I'll see you guys very soon.